Happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome to another session. Today we're going to talk about Revit filters. So, can you see my screen? Okay, everything looks good. You know, I always find, the funny thing is trying to look up anything online for Revit filters. The only thing I could find is just filters from the dot. So there's your filter. Um, Today we're going to discuss filters, like what day-to-day use, what which user can set up. For one instance, what we can do is that we can create section, elevation, detail views, filter, create like RCP hatch based on height. And I'll probably show you a couple of tricks how to do that because it's a very useful if you're doing a reflective seating plan. You want to get certain things to show up. Next thing is this is pretty useful for a lot of offices. Fire rated diagram. Let's say if you want to know what's 1 hour, what's 2 hour, Revit can do that pretty easily. If there's other filters I think a user can use would be the work set filters. Most of the time, work set has very, very unique filters that you can use. So I'm just going to demonstrate how that can do. And what are some of the pitfalls? What is filter? Filters is an easy way for user to customize their view based on certain conditions. We all know how to do like manipulation based on objects, right? So when you go to visibility and graphics, and when you change the how the object behaves, what's the line weight, you can easily do that. With filters, it basically just go into much granular detail based on certain condition. So what you can do in this particular cases is that you can add in a word to the object, and what happens is that if the filter picks up that word, it will automatically recognize that, and you can just manipulate or do whatever you want with that object. It also helps you with analysis. Okay, usually for quality control in a model, I usually use filters to do that. The other thing we tend to do is that help user to avoid hiding objects by element and over objects by element. This is one thing that I stress enough for all the user is that we should never hide objects by element, because the next person, whenever they go in there, every time you do that, it's a cheating way. You can still do it, but for me, if you're working with large team, should be avoided at all costs. Because every time everybody always call 9 out of 10, it's always going to be someone already hide that object in that particular view. So yeah, this is what I'm saying. Do not hide objects. I know that this is like everybody's favorite tool, but if you're doing a lot of quality control, this should be avoided. The only time I would use this is if you are doing like construction documentation, kind of like a CA moment, right? Construction admin, where you have to do like site instruction. This is where this is acceptable. But the rest of the time, when you're doing any model and stuff like that, try to avoid using this. Using override graphics with view element. Okay, so with the override graphics, I know that a lot of people like to override it, like make the object thicker, thinner, and stuff like that. This is a quick and easy way. I usually do it for CAD links. Let's say, for example, if you're linking in a CAD, you want all your drawings to be grayscale. So this is a good way. The reason why is that sometimes AutoCAD drawings, you get like overwhelming layers, and then when you want to change all the layers to, let's say, a gray color, sometimes the object would not show up as gray because people inside the CAD drawings override the layer color to be a certain color. So there's no way Revit can actually pick that up. So the only way you can override it is basically just override the graphics by right-clicking and just override the graphics and just change the color. Okay, workset filter works really good. Have you guys used the workset? No? Okay, I'll show you how to create it. It's pretty easy. Some of the filters. So today we're going to talk about like some of the filters that you guys could create really easily. One sample is if you're creating a section elevation. I usually create this section for filters. The reason why I do this, rather than using, let's say, object just hide stuff, right? It's because certain section will show up on your drawings and you want to hide them. Okay, rather than right click and hide, that's too much work. I use filter to hide it. So for example, if you're doing in large drawings, you want building section to show up and not for your wall section, stair section, you don't want that to show up, then you can use filters to do that. That's the most economical, I would say the easiest way to do it, to filter things out rather than just hiding a bunch of stuff. Ceiling height. How many of you guys deal with reflective ceiling plan? Have you guys did it before? No? Okay. Reflective ceiling plan, there's two ways you can do it. Sometimes what I tend to do is that I usually do it ceiling based on rated and non-rated. But I've seen cases where people wants to know the height of the building. Let's assume that you have a very complicated building and you need a certain ceiling height to be color coded. You can do it in this. I'll show you how to create that. It's pretty easy. Fire rated. If you're doing like a diagram like for a code consultant and you want to know like, okay, what fire rated for what wall, then this is a perfect example. All right, enough talking. Let's go into the project itself. So this particular project, it's kind of like the one I work on. It's a good sample. So let's assume that let's start with the beginning. Okay, in a project, you're going to get a lot of sections, right? It's like some people seen create a bunch of sections. When you kind of go into the section itself, it's going to hide the category. Yeah, you're going to see a lot of section, right? Some section is wall section, some section is actually stair section, and some section overlapping each other. Like for example, here you got overlapping. How do you deal with that, right? Sometimes you don't, like, how do you deal with, let's say, if you duplicate a section and sometimes that section sits on top of each other, how do you deal with that? So there's a couple of ways you can actually do that. Okay, so the easiest way, the first, if you want to set up a section, I'm just going to go VV. Let's create a section. So here, I'm just going to create a section. Okay, let's assume that I want building section and I want the rest of the thing get turned off. How do I do that? So first you can say section. If you want to do reverse, let's say I only want building section, no other section involved. The first thing I would do is that not building section. Okay, just give it like a very simple description so that they can understand. Okay, next you go is that you go section. Once you do that, then you go family type. Okay, you can start out with equal, and you notice that right now, once I do that, you see that there's building section. Okay, since I say I want like all the other section get turned off, so what happened is that you have to think of it as the other way, which is do not equal. Okay, if I say okay, let's say not building section, and when I turn that off, it only shows me building section. Now, the next level is that you have an overlapping, okay? Once you have an overlapping, I always tell user to be very, very specific in how you deal with your building. Make sure that when you do the next, let's say, section, add a prefix or suffix to it. For this one, I have one called NCD. So this one is an NCD, and this one just only have building section, okay? So how I do this, so what you could do is that if you want to turn off everything that is section NCD, again, you just do the same. Add a filter, edit, okay, section NCD, okay. So in this particular one section, I would just say view name, contain, okay. Equals means the word has to be exact. Contain means it can be at the front or it can be at the back. Doesn't matter. So I always put in contain and CD. Okay. Once you do that, so section and CD, and you can just turn it off and see how it goes. There we go. So it just turns off. And sometimes you want, sometimes you're gonna have multiple views, so you must be very, very careful what wording you put in because Revit is very, very finicky when it comes to alphabet or small letters. Yeah, just be careful because sometimes if it doesn't work, it means that you kind of have to double check. Also, spacing is critical. If you say NCD, it could be like there's no space or sometimes have space. You just have to double check. Okay. So that's how you kind of like filter things out pretty quickly with section. I sometimes people recommend, oh, let's do this height coarser level. You can still use it, but I don't recommend doing it for. I don't recommend using it because what happens is that if you set it to, let's say this only shows up at, let's say this is a 1/4 inch, and if you say only show up at 1/2 inch, sometimes what happens is that when someone actually wants to go into the half, like the smaller scale or larger scale, they want that section to show up. And then sometimes you're always going to say, what's happening? Why my section's gone missing? It's because, someone did that. I'm just going to do. Yeah, it happens a lot.
With the types of sections that we have, like building sections, wall sections.
Yes.
We also somehow put the scale on the kilo, right?
Yes, you do. But the only issue I had with that is that the scale, it's relative, right? Sometimes what happens is that it determines of the sheet size. Sometimes your sheet size is 11 by 17, so you kind of have to change your strategy. So this becomes height coarser because irrelevant, because the scale could be, whatever scale you want. For larger size, you probably do like 1/2 inch. That's fine. You can still do it. But I just say filter is a little bit much more cleaner because you can take this and apply it to other template as well. So if you have a template, this is why I love using filters. If you set one up for, let's say, any office, if you go to transfer project standard, you notice that filter is one of them, right? So if you have a filter set up, then you can go from one project to another. It makes it a little bit easier and cleaner to do it. Okay. So this is why I did it, because filter, you can transfer from one project to another, versus if you just use section and say height coarser scale, that thing is not transferable information. Okay. Moving on, so let's say you want to do an RCP plan. Let's say, for example, this is my ceiling plan. I'm just going to duplicate it and call it a sample. Actually, let's duplicate one from the existing one, so you kind of see what this is doing. So let's say I have this reflective ceiling plan. Normally, how reflective ceiling plan works is that you want to show what is on your ceiling, right? Now, this filter has applied drop ceilings and rated ceilings. So let's assume that I want to only show height. How do I do that? So here, I'm just going to do is just duplicate this. Okay, just say duplicate with detailing. I'm going to call it sample. Okay, and here, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to rename it to, say, sample. Filter, I'm just going to turn it off. Right now, RCP, I'm just going to turn off the fire rated, right? Just remove it. I don't need this. Remove this and remove that. And all you see is just basically just reflect the ceiling plan with nothing in it. Next, I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a reflective ceiling plan based on height. So I'm going to go RCP, call it like 8-foot height. Okay. And in here, you can go ceiling. Okay. The rule you can do is this guy right here, height offset from level. Okay. And here you can say it's equal to 8 feet. Okay. And now what I can do here is that RCP 8-foot height, and then you can just say for the pattern, let's give it like a color, and let's make it all red. Okay, pretty straightforward. When you hit apply, you notice that it shows you that. Now, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to add in I'm just going to duplicate this. So I'm going to duplicate two of them. One of them is 8 foot beyond above 8 foot. I'm just going to call it above 8 foot. Okay. And then the other one I'm going to do is below 8 foot. But if you want a specific height, you can just punch in the number. Like let's say, for example, you know that you only have 3 heights, ceiling height. Sometimes you don't have that luxury. You just want to have a range. So above 8 foot, you can say height is greater than 8 foot. And then this one is below 8 foot, less than 8 foot. Okay. So say okay. And what you could do is that you just add it in. So above 8 foot, I could say, let's put it a different hatch. Let's assume that I want to use this guy triangle. Color, I'm just going to use pink. Okay. And then this one, I'm just going to use a different hatch. This one, and let's make it an orange so you can see it. And when you hit apply, now you have a ceiling plan, okay? So imagine if you can go in there and change this to, let's say this is going to be 7 foot 10, right? And what happened is that the hatches changed based on that, okay? I've seen in the past what people do is that they duplicate type and then just keep adding type and say, oh, this is 7 foot, this is the, no, don't do that. Use filter, because filter can automatically determine what height you're in. And automatically it just tells you, okay, this is below 8 foot, then it's going to hatch it differently. Okay, so don't create a type for different ceiling depth. It's kind of pointless. So just have one type. Like let's say, assume that it's just a gypsum wallboard, right? And then what you do is that use filter just to determine what height you want to be in. Okay, so that's kind of like how you do height differences in this project. But if you want to go back into, let's say, if you want to fire rated versus non-fire rated, you can also do the same thing. So what you do here is the same way how I did the other one is, I'm just going to turn this off. So what I did in this particular reflective ceiling plan is that I only want to show what's fire rated and then what's drop ceiling. So how I do this is that, okay, gypsum wallboard non-rated. So here what I do is that I'm going to go edit. Okay, so what I did is that anything that type name has rated, then give me that hatch. If it's non-rated, I just say non-rated. Just give it a very simple rule base. So the file name, the type name equals non-rated, then it's going to show me that particular one. Okay, that's pretty much it. Like for reflective ceiling plan, because it's a very simple setup. What? Yeah, it's very useful. So I've seen in the past where people just create different types for different height. I just told them that no, don't do that. Never do that. This is a much better solution.
Yeah, so you typed on that before.
Yeah.
This is magic for me.
Yes. Yeah. All right. The next one I'm going to talk about is wall types. Okay. Wall types are a very important thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to duplicate a sample. Okay. Let's assume that code consultant is telling you, okay, can you provide me a diagram of your like fire rated wall? So what I'm going to do is that I'm just going to go sample. Okay, samples. And here what I'm going to do, oops, here I'm just going to turn off room. Okay, I don't need it. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is that I'm going to create wall type based on fire rated. So what I'm going to do here is that in the filter, you can say wall 1 hour. Okay, you can put in like multiple objects. It doesn't have to be wall. You could say fire rated 1 hour, and you can include door, windows, or whatever you want in it. So here, what I'm going to do is that for wall, oops, wall, just look at fire rated and say this is 1 HR equal 1 HR. And what you're going to do here is that for 1 hour, we're just going to go to the cut pattern, make it all solid, and say that this is going to be this color. And I'm gonna add in the multiples. So you're gonna have 2 hours, 3/4 of an hour. So here I'm just gonna say duplicate it, call it 2 hours. So this is the this is what I like about the filter, is that you could just duplicate it and then just add in what you want. And then here you can just go in here, 2 hour, and 2 hour you're gonna have a different color. So let's assume that this is all green. And then you're gonna add more. I'm just gonna add one more, 1.5 hour. You can go on forever for this. And here I'm just gonna do this and say okay, hit apply. Let's see what it's gonna give me. Right away, it's not gonna show you anything because this one we haven't added any values. So here what you could do is that you could go in here and edit the type. And you notice that here, fire rated, it's not showing anything. So here I'm just gonna go 1 hour. When you hit apply, it lights up like magic. Oh, there you go. And here, let's see what it's showing me. So here it's rated. And when you see there is okay, there's 2. I'm just gonna say 1.5 hour. Pink. And then here, let's see what this one's saying. You see how easy it is to set up? So you can actually do a color-coded what level you want to create. Let's say this is shaft metal stud, it's 2 hour. I'm just gonna go to HR. Here we go, it's green. And then this looks like this particular object is CMU 2 hour. Well, I don't know why. Yeah, sometimes people will mess up, right? Like when you copy objects from another project, usually this what happens is that you should have like a template where you have all the walls and everything already figured out. So when you copy it in, filters also work the same way. When you drag that filter into your project, then this should be set up. And then when you say OK, and then there we go. Now, if you want to do like a fire rated for doors, let's say, for example, let's say this one you want to tie in with something, you can always go back instead of wall. Okay, you can say that fire rated including the door. Okay, and then you can also add rules. Let's say, for example, here, fire rated, fire rated, fire rated equals, I think they only have like 90 minutes. There we go. Right? 2 hours and 90 minutes. You can also add in like, add a set, or you can say add a set or add a rule. Oh, there we go. This is what I want. I'm just going to remove that, add a rule, and do.
The room is just for the door?
Yeah, this is just for the rule for the door, right? Equals 90 minutes. Okay. So what happened is that this is a new filter inside Revit 2019, but if you're using the older version, you kind of have to do another way, right? Because it wasn't that clear. For this one, what it does is that if you find that filter that has 2 hours or any value that has 90 minutes, put it in this color, right? So I'm going to say okay, hopefully it changes. No, it doesn't do anything. Sorry, my bad. Okay, let's do it again. Yeah. Rule, add a rule, and fire rated equals 90 minutes. Let's see if this does it right, because I could get it mixed up, because the add a rule, it's basically if you have another condition, then put it in. Let's see if that works. Yeah, it just overrides that. It doesn't help.
Because when you added the seed, it was and E1.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, this is the most confusing part about the filter that when they add it in. The or rules is actually supposed to be if you add another set, right? You can say and all rule must be true or any rule must be true. It doesn't have like the other way, which is basically how I interpret it, is that first the rule must be correct, which is 2 hours. Just keep it as it is. And the other one is that give me another sets of rules that basically say if it's 90 minutes, also categorize that into one. So yeah, this is what they're supposed to be doing for filters, but for some odd reason, it's almost like they want to say, okay, first the rule must be 2 hours, and then the next one has to be combined with the 90 minutes with the 2 hours, and that's what's confusing it. If it doesn't work, then the other alternative is just to do the wall, and then door, right? That's how we usually do it in the past. So here I'm just going to do this exactly the same. Just go do door, 90 minutes. Okay. So do the door. The rule must be the fire rated. Yeah. Sometimes when Revit implements like every time they add in a new one, uh, it may work or it may not work. Because originally what I thought of is that they're adding a rule so that you can say, oh, this is true, so please put it into this color. But for some odd reason, this one is kind of like, this has to be true, this has to be true. If the true value doesn't show up, no mas, right? So basically the filter fails. So yeah, it's better to just basically just go the old school way, just create two different sets. So here I'm just going to do line work, color, just make it all green. If you want, you can actually say, okay, this is the weight, and hopefully it works.
Oh, it only works for the frame.
Oh yeah, yes, that's right. Okay, this is the tricky part. Okay, so one thing you kind of have to go in is that if the door, right, also add in the details items. Oh, actually, no, the detail item doesn't. Yes, I think it's okay. So equals 90 minutes. You're right. It's probably because of this. You have to do it for both sides. Oops, sorry about that. I have to close that out. Yeah, I'll just shut this down, close it. Leave page. Okay. So here I'm just going to go in and say 6, for instance, and hit apply. I think that's what it is. Make sure both of them, cut and projection. Okay, now it shows up. Okay, and why this doesn't change, which means that this is how you do QA/QC. If let's say this is 90 minutes and this is not 90 minutes, then you know that, oh, someone messed it up. They didn't put it. It's under non-rated, so you kind of have to go in and change it to an hour and a half. Let's say, for example, this one. Okay, it's a good way to kind of like check to make sure that your doors or it's at the correct fire rating, because this is one of the most critical thing is that when you share this model to consultant or contractors, they will most likely going to use this model as kind of like your documentation kind of a thing. And for them, what they do is that if they see there's a fire rated and then you don't tell them, then they assume that it's non-fire rated. The cost is going to be much lower, right? So at the end of the day, it's much easier if you do this exercise once, kind of a thing, just to double check and make sure that your doors is at the correct, it's the correct object. Okay, so you could do the same thing. This one, I think it's 20 minutes. Okay, so again, you just add filters. Say if it's a 20-minute, give me this, and there we go. Okay, the other thing I want to mention is that very quickly, it's like, okay, let's assume that you have a work set, like doesn't matter what object it is, you want that particular work set to be at different color. Oops, what is this doing? Your audio connection has been lost. Attempt to reconnect now. No, audio will not be recorded during this time. Oh, technology. I love you. Oh, technology. There we go. Audio is restored. Okay, so let's assume that you want all your work set. Let's say this particular object, I put it under 6.0 work set. Okay, so normally you can go into the furniture and tell it to go half tone, right? The unfortunate part about that is it's only the furniture is going to be half tone, but not the whole thing with the wall itself. So what you could do is that you can add a one called filter, right? Here I call it work set 6, but how you create it very easily is check all, and the only thing that's going to show up is work set. So that's how I do it. Is that okay? Anything with a work set equals, and you could just pick which one you want. I want interior suite, right? You should always rename it to say work set interior suite 6.0. Okay, and once you have that, that's the thing. When you select all of it, the only thing that shows up is work set. And you could go work set interior suite, and you can just give it a half tone and say, okay, my line work, I just want it to be this color. And same thing as this one, I just want it to be this color. And you can do very weird things with it too. So there we go.
Sweet.
Yeah, that's how I do work set. It's very, very, very fast, right? So if you want to filter by work set, that's the easiest.
To check as well if things are on the correct.
That's correct. This is also QA/QC, right? If you have like people putting in the right work set or wrong work set, this is a good way to do it because you could say, oh, crap, this one's in the wrong work set. Then you notice that, okay, this one I have to put it under, you see that, okay, it's the wrong work set. Then you can say, okay, go back and put it in. So filters not only just doing it for like just like a simple hiding and stuff, you can also do a QA/QC where you can say what object belongs to what, is it in place in the right work set. Sometimes you can see a lot of things. People put in work set 1 or work set. Yeah, and this is able to kind of help you determine what work set they're supposed to be in. So hopefully that's 5 more minutes before I signed off. So any questions so far? Pretty simple. Are you guys gonna start using using this method? Did you?
I used to show the fire ratings with dashed lines, and like really,
Yeah.
messed up.
It can get messed up. There's another way I usually do in the past is that, okay, let me duplicate this. There's another way you can actually show line if you wanted to. I'll just show it to you. You can use this method, but I would not use it just because whatchamacallit, the structure is going to hate you for this. So what I did in the past is that you could use analytics. So what you could do is that there is an analytic. There is one for wall, analytic wall. Okay. And what happened with the analytic wall is that you must turn this wall into structure, okay, to make that show up. Where is it? Structural. Let's see if it's going to help me. There you go. You see that there's a line there already generated, right? So this line, it tells you there is an analytic wall. So what you could do here is that you can actually do gravity, lateral. There's a bunch of stuff you can actually put in here, or you can put in comment 1 rated or 1 hour or transparency value. So what you can do here is that let's do analytics, right? So you can add. Analytic, let's assume that is just 1 hour. I'm just going to test it. I haven't done this for so long. See if it works. So analytic, okay, and then family types equal, okay, so here we have CMU8, okay, and then say okay. Let's assume that this is okay. Then now what you can do is that for a line, you can go give it like 7, give it like that, And let's assume that this is going to be dot dash dot. Let's see how it works. And when you say okay, let's see what it's going to give me. Oh yeah, it will change. But I think what happened with this is that, let me double check if I modify anything with this. Nope, nothing. Yeah, so you can actually do that. In the past, this is what I did, is that if there is a wall, analytics, you could draw that line, but structure's gonna kill you because now all your wall is structural and they're gonna analyze it. So I would just say use this cautionally. So now I don't use structural stuff because that's their part. So I'm not going to do it. So what I did as an alternative is creating this model. You probably see this quite a bit. This is my fire rated line, right? So I have a fire rated line. It's a model, right? So you can just draw it in. Regardless if I copy this multiple times, it will not disappear. You see that it's a fire rated line. So you can always go in and change it right away. So let's say if I want to change that to 1.5 hour, it's already changed, or 2 hour, it's easily changed. So that's kind of like how I do it for fire rated line. It's a model object, so it's a family. So it has a height. So this one, let's assume that you have a wall that wants to span, like, let's say 40-story high. Rather than doing it level by level, you could say this wall is rated up to like 120 feet, right? And then on the next level could be like not rated. So this one you can easily customizable and yeah, make it show up in multiple levels. This is what I like families, because families does help. All right. Hopefully that helps you a little bit on filters. But yeah, if you have any questions, just let me know.